Why can't you be happy? I think you can. So let me share with you a story from Chinese medicine, and bear with me because it's going to take a little bit of time. When I first started down the path of Chinese medicine, I didn't know it was going to transform my life. Taoism is a pillar of Chinese medicine, and it's always hard to find well written Taoist translation. And there's this one translation of a book by Wang Fengyi, and the book is Discourse on Transforming Inner Nature. And there's this one translation that is a beautiful translation of these Taoist teachings. And the translators were able to translate into English, which is this language of labels, definitions, and judgments, a Taoist work without that. And that's one of the goals in Taoism, to try and reduce the labels, the definitions, and the judgments. Yet here's a problem. Labels, definitions, and judgments are ingrained in you, and most translations of Taoist works include that. So back to this book. What clicked for me was this book shared essential lessons on being human. And it's more than that. It's like a first step in helping you down the path of social interactions. Those interactions that help overcome being alone. And most of the time, it may feel like these skill sets elude you, from the highest CEO who feels they can't get out and find real friends, to the warehouse worker who's going to stay home on Friday night because they're afraid of going out and trying to make friends. So let me see here. Everything in the body is electrical energy moving from place to place, moving from one nerve to another, from one cell to another. And that energy, you try to trace it back to, where did that energy all start? And there's this point when you're tracing it back that you're like, okay, I don't know how this happened. And when you get to that point where you can't figure out how it happened, that's the God principle. So, I don't know what started that first heartbeat, but it happened. I was watching this documentary on our universe before it was our universe, before the sun, when it was still dark. And after the basic outline of the universe was established, it still took something like another 50 billion years. And then one day, the sun ignited, like your first heartbeat. It happened. And it was in that moment, as I was watching this program, that I could see chaos and desire. So life, it's this incredibly unpredictable event. It's chaos. And then there was desire. There was some unimaginable, unknown force that had this desire to be. And the sun ignited. But it all comes down to desire, right? Because desire creates intent, which creates action. And I think that is one of the most fundamental concepts of being human, which is desire. The desire to be loved, to be accepted, to be connected. And I think that may be part of what Rumi was writing about. It's that fundamental desire to be connected that drives action. And when we're not connected to other people, we can feel alone and afraid. And think about being at some event in a crowd of strangers. You only know yourself in this crowd of strangers, and that discomfort is like fear. Fear of being separated from the whole. And what we have to do then is become the sun itself. So all fear of separation can forever be ended. Okay. When Rumi said that, it almost implies that fear is something that is natural and that comes about because we're separated. We're separated from each other, from the Tao, from God. We're separated from I don't know, but we're separated, and you stand alone. So if you look around yourself right now, you can identify yourself as a unique individual. You stand alone, you stand separated. Yet, there is this desire to be connected, and that desire frames your intent or your objective. And with objectives that have intent, and that intent was ignited by desire, you create action. So if I'm craving ice cream and there's none in the house, my cravings are going to form the objective of obtaining ice cream, and that objective creates action, and I'm going to go to the grocery store to buy ice cream to satisfy my desire. Okay, so that's the simple outline of desire. Yet if we have a fundamental need to be connected to other people, to the world, our desire will frame our actions. I mean, if Rumi is right, the deepest desire is to be connected. Yet, all your efforts are going to be based on what you know or what you learned. And usually, the social skills you learned in the first 5 to 7 years of life are going to be the foundational pillars for the rest of your life. Okay, I was watching Love Hard with Jimmy Young the other night, and I thought it was pretty funny. Well, Jimmy Young plays Josh Lynn, and he has a brother named Owen. Well, Owen, the brother, is pretty serious about being the center of attention. So if Josh gets any attention, Owen's going to publicly humiliate and belittle Josh. Okay, so over the years, Josh has learned that you just have to ignore it and take it. And over the years, being around Owen has become an unpleasant and stressful experience. And it isn't a safe experience because Owen's going to take every opportunity he can to belittle and humiliate his brother. But you see, the problem with that experience is Josh is uncomfortable being out in the world. He's still living at home. He's this great person, but some of the social skills he learned growing up, they're just not serving him. Okay, thank you, Owen. And isn't that the truth? Some of the things we learn from our family could really do without, but you're here now. So anyways, Wang Fengyi in his book, Discourse on Transforming Inner Nature, talks about your emotional interactions with world, and this translation is so perfectly Taoist in that it shares his learning without judgments or labels, and that allows you to hear his words and find freedom to examine your own actions. And sometimes the problem with what we learned as a kid is the learnings are filled with these judgments, with these labels, with these imaginary boundaries of what you can and can't do and who you can and can't be. And here's the thing with that, those experiences set off different chemical reactions in the body. And you're like, okay, now where are we going? Well, these different chemical reactions open the door to not only different illnesses in the body, but to different emotions in the body. And and between these two things, you create your own fencing to, I guess, to keep you, to rein yourself in. Okay, so let's look at that for a minute. We know that different parts of the body work differently from every other part of the body. And yet we only know that at this super high level. So here's an example. We know that the stomach, it's incredibly acidic and it has a pH of like 2. Now, that's really different from what's going on in, say, the blood, which has a pH of like 7.4. So these pH differences, they're going to be like standing on the planet Venus, which is like 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 470 degrees Celsius, versus standing On Saturn, which is a negative 285 degrees Fahrenheit or a negative 176 degrees Celsius. Okay, so neither one of these guys is very survivable on its own. But here's the thing, it takes the whole universe working together to enable the planet Earth to exist. So we need all our body parts working together for us to exist in harmony with ourselves. And so you need the stomach and the blood to exist. And each has different functions in the body, and they manage different actions in the body. And these different actions are going to cause different emotional responses in your body. And when they're out of balance, they're going to cause different illnesses. The stomach manages digestion. Have you ever noticed it's difficult to sleep when you're experiencing heartburn or bloating? And that lack of sleep is going to have a negative impact on your emotions. Okay, and then there's blood. Not having the correct nutrition in your blood causes what Chinese medicine calls blood deficiency. And blood deficiency is the easiest way to anxiety. So changes in the body cause different end results. But when they're out of balance and not working together, sure, they create disease, but what they really do is reinforce whatever negative belief you have about yourself and the world. So this started out with desire, that there's this fundamental desire to be connected. The problem with that fundamental desire is you only do what you know. And what you know is what you learned by the time you were 5 to 7 years old. Everything since then is like window dressing. You're just adding different colors and different fabrics. Okay, but can you change that? I mean, if you looked around right now and found that your life was a definition of loneliness or separation, that your true wish or desire in your heart was not being fulfilled, could you change that? You can, and the clue is in the body. And that was a weird magic of Chinese medicine. The body, it isn't the ultimate result. It's a vessel that reflects your life. So just like you can remodel an old house, you can remodel your life. And that was what all the different layers of classical Chinese medicine offered, especially when you look at some of the different beliefs and sciences that make up Chinese medicine. It becomes not a medical wellness plan, but a life's journey guidebook. That was a part that I didn't realize until the last few years. It's a guidebook to help you reach your spiritual goals in this life. Traditional Chinese medicine, what is mostly practiced in the United States, just looks at the very last step, rebalancing your physical health. So for me, it started with Taoism. Taoism just really resonated with me. And the only reason I studied it was because it was this foundation to Chinese medicine. And then something happened. And I really started studying classical Chinese medicine, 5 element theory. And that's when I started to see this weird magic that we don't have in Western medicine. And Rumi's quote, that really hit home because I think he's right. At the root of all our actions is a desire to connect. And sure, you get tied up with crappy partners, forced into crappy jobs, suddenly surrounded by selfish people, but that's not the end. And it may take some work to dig yourself out of that, but you can. So here are some first steps you can take. The physical body, it's not an end result. The physical body is the record keeper. So record keeper, it's not the end result. So if you're aware that emotions are out of balance, if fear is driving you, anger, resentment, anxiety, consuming you, then that can be changed. And sure, acupuncture definitely can rebalance you and get you over that. But if you want more than that, the thing you have the easiest access to is going to be your eating choices. And sure, food, it's the easiest thing to look at, but it's the hardest thing to change. And if you want some truly lasting results, food is it. And if you need some help figuring out where to go with food or how to do it, check out my food courses on Chinese nutritional therapy and implementing those into your life. There should be a link in the corner of this video, or there will be a link in the video description below. Now, the next big thing is learning to manage your mind. And there are three big philosophies in Chinese medicine: Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Well, finding well-written translations that are not saturated with that black and white thinking of the West can truly make a difference in your life. And one of my favorite books is going to be that translation of Wang Fengyi. And if you can't find it, or if you're not sure which is the right translation, there should be a link probably in the video description below. If you need guidance on your thought processes to help you see a different way, check out the I Ching. Start studying the I Ching. The I Ching is a mentor to help you make better decisions in your life. And if you're not sure what that means, what does it mean to make better decisions for yourself, then check out my episode, Chinese Astrology 101. That goes into more detail on the 4 pillars of destiny and how divination works in the I Ching in Chinese astrology. If the I Ching is a little confusing, and it can be, you'll find a link in the video description below where you can order an I Ching consultation from me. Okay, until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.